Welcome back. So tonight we're talking also about the Achimota Forest. There was a very concerning report yesterday in the afternoon that the Achimota Forest was being sold. That led to lots of people protesting online about this. This led Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Jinapor rather, to hold a press conference, an emergency one of course, to try and clarify that this was not the case and that the EI was to declassify parts of the Achimota Forest and essentially give it back to the Owu family. Of course, he also said the process had begun in 2008 and was continued in 2011, 2012, 2013. Suhuyini is from the minority. You guys held a press conference today and you are angry about what's going on. But the minister is saying that he is just finishing what you started. So what's your problem?
Well, good evening, Bernard, and good evening to our viewers. I think that it's important that we clarify that attempt to get a twin, or whether a sister or a brother, as far as this matter is concerned. Clearly, what this government is doing is not a continuation of what previous government did in relation to the development of the Achimota Forest. Two things stand out.
Okay.
One, the EI to declassify or reclassify the forest is something that previous governments did not consider. And we will perhaps in the fullness of time discuss the impact of the EI and the effect of it to the forest reserve. Secondly, previous governments did not, allocate to the Owo family 361 acres of land. Now, these two are completely different from the, processes that took place under President Kufuor. Now, first of all, for me, the government under President Kufuor faulted, even in considering, allocating parcels of land around the Achimota Forest to the family. Why? Because
90 acres, we are told.
90 acres. Why? Because the Achimota Forest is the only forest reserve in Ghana for which compensation was paid, at least part of it. All the 265 forest reserves that we have, governments have never paid compensation to the landowners. Not for part and not for whole. So when you begin, because parts of the Achimota Forest did not have compensation paid for it, to return it to the original owners, you may be giving ideas to other landowners across the country where their land have been used as forest reserve to also begin to demand that portions of such lands or whole of those lands be returned to them for private use. And so it was a mistake, in my view, in 2007, 2008 to even, agree, despite the claims of the family, to allocate the 90 acres to them. But be it as it may, it was done. Now, the President Mills and President Mahama government took over and went into the matter and realized, based on humanitarian grounds, that it was going to be, if you like, unfair to take it back from the family when it had already been granted to them. So what they did was that the government had a policy of preserving the Achimota Forest through the Eco Park, project. And eco parks worldwide are noted to be one of the best ways to preserve forests, especially forests that are located in cities. It is one of the best ways to preserve the forest and to maximize its utilization. So the eco park policy on the table of the previous government led to a renegotiation with the company, with the family, that had been allocated 90 acres. Now, the 90 acres were allocated to them from the core part of the forest, around the Noga Hill Airport area, I mean, the Noga Hill Hotel area, close to the Tema motorway. Now, the forest managers determined that any development there was going to impact the forest more than any other place, because that was core not only to the forest, but also to the development of the eco park that the government was considering to undertake. And so they negotiated with the family to give them a different portion. That is the Abofu area of the forest. Now, because of that change, and because the Abofu area had also seen some encroachment and others, the family therefore requested that, you know, the acreage be increased.
From 90 to how much?
From 90, I don't know their request, but what I do know is that only about 20 acres were added to the 90 because they were shifting them from the core area that was awarded them by the previous government on humanitarian grounds. So it came up to about 14 acres.
I see.
Now, fast forward, the government again, because of the intention to keep the forest, you know, the way it is, so that it is managed properly, did not consider the idea of an EI that will reclassify the portion that was even allocated to the family. Because
so how was the family supposed to exploit the portion given to them?
They were supposed to do so in consultation with the Forestry Commission. So no development could take place, you know, in that area that was allocated to them without the authority of the Forestry Commission, because the Forestry Commission was to determine if any development there will have a negative impact on the remaining reserve that was to be used as an eco park. And Bernard, if you look at Cap 157, Section 17, it talks about managing land within a forest reserve on behalf of its owners. And so the Forest Commission has the mandate and also the know-how to manage land that belongs to, you know, other people when that land it's situated within a forest reserve.
Quick question. Did the NDC government not make a fundamental mistake by allowing the head of the Forestry Commission at the time, Afaridate, to chair the committee to determine whether the Owu family had a case? Because you just said to me that the Forestry Commission was then the body that was supposed to oversee how they would develop the land. But this is the same organization whose chair is overseeing a committee or chairing a committee to decide whether we should even give them the land at all. That seems to place the man in a very interesting position, does it not?
I will not know the circumstances of the time and what went into the decision to get him to chair it. But what will be important for all of us today will be for the ministry to release that report, since they are using it as a defense, so that we can determine the terms of reference that the committee was given and the issues that they considered in its entirety, and which led to the recommendations that they made. But the point that I sought to stress with that explanation is the fact that the committee recommended, you know, that only about 20 acres be added because they were relocating the family from the area that the President Kufuor administration allocated to them, but also maintained the area as a reserve. Now, what is different now is that this government has issued an EI to reclassify that area and have also gone ahead to increase the acreage. Now that is substantially different from what previous governments were doing.
So you're saying that the acreage that the NDC granted was not up to 180?
No, it wasn't. It was not up to 120. It was around 114.
114.
114.
I see.
Yes. And like I have explained, this was because they were moving them from the area that they had been allocated by the President Kufuor administration, because it was determined to be the core, you know, area of the forest, and also an area that was critical to the eco park policy.
All right, let me show viewers what we did. We have a little map we prepared in the morning from Google Map Pro. Essentially, if you look at the schedule of the EI, it gives you the 5 sites, site A, B, C, D, E. So if you look on your screen, so site, if you put the 5 coordinates together, it totals 146 hectares. Now the figure, that rhombus looking structure, which is reddish, that's the whole Achimota Forest. So to the north is Gimpa, there's Achimota School on your left, North Jowlu to your right, Noga Hill at the bottom. When we mapped out what the EI was proposing to give to the Owu family, it is I call it a rhombus, right? You have 2 parallel lines, and then one side which is straight and the other side which is sort of oblique. So where we've put the yellow peg is the middle of the allocation. From our calculation, that's 40.6% of the total Achimota Forest. So that was the first point. So if you look on your map, the yellow, I can only call it a rhombus. So the original size of the forest was 494.95 hectares. As of 2013, Afaridate said to us that the size of the forest had reduced to 360 hectares. 27% of the forest reserve had been lost. Now, the EI declassifies 146 hectares, which is 40.5% of the forest. So we made the point to Honorable Jinapo that this 40.5% could not be referred to as the periphery in the sense of it being small. I interviewed him earlier today. I'll play you an excerpt of that interview to hear what he said about this. But I'll keep this map on for you to see properly what we are talking about. So if you look at the portions circled red, there's another red one circled up there. That's where the Forestry Commission is, near the Ghana Airways Flats. So this is near Gimpa. But the main forest is stationed between North Jowlu, Noga Hill Hotel. The zoo is on your left side. The new Achimota station is to the extreme left. Achimota School is close to it. The yellow rhombus, that's the only way I can describe it. A rhombus is different from a parallelogram. That's the part which has been reclassified, the yellow rhombus with the yellow pin in the middle. Now let's hear what Jinapo said to me earlier when I spoke to him.
The issues of compensation, then at 1927, somebody acquires your land in 1927, and you're having to be compensated in 2022. The variables change. Value of land then is different from value of land now. But those are matters we can continue to.
But Minister, just a quick one. If somebody has his land compulsorily acquired and he wants compensation, and again, I'm asking this as a layman, why do you give him back part of the land? Because initially the 21 acquisition, you give them £4,000. So a compensation could be pecuniary. Why are they being given land?
You are very adept at matters to do with finance and the rest. Perhaps take some time and do the extrapolation of the current value of £4,000 of 1921. It may help. But the point is that it's become fashionable these days that land rather is given in lieu of compensation, because of the quantums of money that we talk about when it comes to compensation. In fact, we are having a lot of difficulties with compensation, monetary compensation, because when you look at it, it's simply not sustainable. And the volume of applications or petitions before my desk for compensation across the country, across the length and breadth of this country, and the amount of money we are talking about, the Ghanaian Treasury will need 3-4 times of all of our money to pay that kind of compensation. So in many cases, you want to find innovative ways of dealing with these matters, without necessarily burdening the public exchequer. Yes.
Okay, but by the way, what is the size of Achimota Forest as we have it?
Yeah, I have to check, but I think it's 400 plus hectares, I think.
Really?
But I have to check.
Based on,
I'm not sure.
I see, because based on the demarcations we have seen on our own maps, and these are public maps, what is left of the Achimota Forest is around 363 hectares. 363 hectares.
Okay, you may be right, actually.
Good. Now that translates to 889 acres. Now the schedule of the EI gives the size of the area to be 361 acres. So essentially, you're giving 40.5% of Achimota Forest back to the Owu family based on what I've just said. Let me just reiterate. 363 hectares is 889 acres. You're giving 361 acres of that. That's 40.5% of Achimota Forest. That cannot be described as the periphery of the forest.
We have to, that's with the greatest of respect, that's a bit simplistic, because the original acquisition of that's the original acquisition, part of which is being used for Gimpa, part of which is being used for Forestry Commission headquarters, and so on and so forth. So I'm not too sure that this way of
no, but okay, Minister. But even if it's 479 hectares,
let me finish.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me finish. I don't want to get into this mathematics because it can be misleading, and it can be done in a way that you really don't have the hard facts and to be able to make a judgment. What we have to really be asking ourselves is the area which is vegetated, which is forested. What is that area? I mean, that's really what you should be looking at. If you are saying that Achimota Forest is 379, and it turns out that the vegetated area is 100 hectares, and the rest of it is not vegetated, and it's built up already, and so on and so forth, that changes the calculus altogether. So that's why I say, with the greatest of respect, it may be simplistic.
No, actually, with all due respect, it's not, because mathematics is more accurate than English. So that's why I am using numbers to say that describing what has been given to them as peripheral is actually less accurate, which is why I'm going to the numbers. The EI mentions that we are giving them 146 hectares. And I am saying, based on even what you've said, that Achimota Forest, when it was originally acquired, was not up to 500 hectares. From the calculation we have, is 363 hectares. 146 hectares out of that is about 40%. So I put it to you that is a very substantial part of the forest. That's 2/5 of the forest.
Don't let me quarrel with you with your mathematics. I mean, you hold on to that. What I do know is that the vegetated part of Achimota Forest is substantially protected. What the mathematics are and so on and so forth, we can take those up later. Because I don't want to get into, I don't have any figures in front of me here. So I don't want to get into a percentage of that and that and that. I'm not too sure that.
But how did you convince yourself that what is being given out, what is left, is still substantial forest then?
No,
if you can't use the numbers.
It's not about me convincing myself. The way officials of the Ghanaian state, the Forestry Commission and others who did a very professional job, went and did surveying and so on and so forth, and made recommendations which, in their view, are unimpeachable. I mean, that is how government business is run. The way you are going about it is another way of going about it, which is taking figures and adding on and subtracting and so on and so forth. That's another matter. We can continue to interrogate them. I myself, I will continue to refresh myself of the processes.
Okay, Minister, maybe what would have helped us is if the site plan was released, because what we have is words describing the schedule and the coordinates given, which we have used. Is there a site plan that you are prepared to share to show us the extent of the land and then the size of the forest, so everybody can see that this is just the periphery of the forest?
I have to check with the technical people. I have to.
But is this not germane to the discussion?
It may be. And if it is and we have to share it, why not? We can do that.
I actually think it is.
So that was me earlier with Minister Samuel Jinapa. We'll come back. Suhuyini has a few more points to make, but we tried to show you geographically what this 146 hectares does mean. And he's promised that he will share, if the technical people agree, the details, because I'm told there are documents with pink edges that actually show the allocation back to the old family. That may help us. But until we get that, we believe that this calculation we've done based on Google Map Pro is very exact, because it's close to the road and it's exactly 146 hectares out of the 363. We'll be right back. This is the Point of View. Stay with us.
For generations, Ghanaians have had one thing in common: And that's the way we start our day. Wherever your day will take you, start with the energy from Cadbury Rich Cocoa, made from the finest Ghanaian cocoa.
This advert is FDA approved.
Whatever the occasion, with ATL, you can never be out of style. ATL, bringing fabric to life.
Bell Beverages Bell Chill and Win promotion in Amafi 2022 yi ayede. To our favorite Bell drink, say a Tamarinda, Bell Cola, Puka, Big Boss, Squeeze, Breeze, Bell Malt, and the Keka Hubia. Why when washes so the other 20, Fashion Lupum Chowding and no contact Ekaho. A Fako Bell Beverages Depot, and as a one accredited distributors are one more or memoir fana bebia. Ube to media HDP ewa Bell Chill and Win promotion na yedo TV, radio, and a social media so. HDP to say, Demoniama Bibria wope, Bell product watch Bebre, and a cradia which media kudidra. Na final raffle draw no, ube to me the Kia Picanto, Emono Chow. Bell Chill and Win promotion there will be a winner. So Pemuche Chemubia, Fred 0544 335 800. Afeiso Kayo, Sir Bell Beverages, and what Jumia Ghana so. FDA, Ajigredient Kratoi Atom.
Welcome back. We're still on the point of view. We're talking about the furor of the Achimota Forest. Suhuyini, I think it's important to also point out that there was misinformation about this yesterday. Everybody on social media was saying that the Achimota Forest was being sold to a private developer. Subsequent events will prove this is false. I'm not sure if the NDC or the minority in your statement admitted that falsehood.
Well, first of all, it was not for us to admit it, if indeed it's a falsehood, because we didn't, churn that out. So it was not for us to admit to anything. But Bernard, clearly, if you look at the intention of the family and the decision of government to award, like you yourself said in your discussion with the minister, almost half of the forest to the family, and then follow it with an EI, that declassifies it and takes, it away from the regulations governing management of forest reserve. The family will not keep it as a forest reserve, will they? They will sell it. The family will sell it. So whoever put it out there yesterday that the government was selling the Achimota Forest, to a very large extent, got it right, because if the government had not issued the EI declassifying that area, one would have been forgiven to still think that whatever development will take place there will still be in consultation with the Forestry Commission and will be ecologically, friendly to whatever will remain of the forest. But once you issue an EI, and maybe in order not to confuse our listeners, you were using hectares, I'm using acres, so that some people don't get the figures wrong. 146, hectares is equivalent to 361 acres.
Yes.
So they are awarding 146 hectares, which is the same as 361 acres. You understand? But the size of the forest you determined was 360 hectares, which is about 889 acres.
Exactly.
So if you give 360 out of 889, that's almost half of the forest you have given, and you support it with an EI that says that it is no longer a forest reserve, which means that any form of development, even a factory, can now be cited.
So let me agree. So you're saying that when you guys gave the 99-year lease, you did not do an EI because you did not intend for them to use it for anything
that will not be ecologically friendly.
Ecological.
Yes, that will not be ecologically friendly. The intention,
but that's what,
and that is why developments couldn't even take place, because the government's agenda was to develop the eco park first.
What about the fact that under point 3 here, the minister shall not approve any development on the land specified in the schedule unless the minister is satisfied that A, it is in accordance with the master plan developed by the Land Use and Special Planning Authority, and B, does not adversely affect the ecological integrity of an adjoining forest reserve. Is this not some caveat?
Bernard, those are vain assurances, and experience has taught us that some of these regulations do not serve us well. I mean, how many people in this city have built without a building permit? How many communities have sprung up without any plan, of their community? Are they not all supposed to be done before buildings are put up? Yet, over the years, we do know that we don't follow these things. But what we know has served us well over the years is that once an area is declared a forest reserve, certain developments don't take place there. And you did not even need an EI. That is why I said that there are two things that make what is happening substantially different from what happened previously. Once you issue the EI, you are given the chance to owners of that land to engage in whatever development that they want to engage in. The Noga Hill Hotel that we just spoke of was a part of the Achimota Forest. Green Hill was part of the Achimota Forest. That's Gimpa. It was part of the Achimota Forest. When they were going to carry out those developments, the governments of the day did not issue any EI to say that those areas were no longer reserves. And so the developments there were such that they were ecologically friendly to the reserve. But when you look, when the previous government, that's another I don't want to say dishonest narration that was in the minister's statement, when he said that the family was given sub-leases and leases and they could not develop it. Bernard, I have with me here, an indenture dated 22nd August 2014. And, this is an indenture where the family actually subleased part of the land that they were allocated to IPSTIC and ADB, Agricultural Development Bank. And they also, granted subleases to people of valuable consideration in that area in 2014. So, but developments could not perhaps take place because the planned development is not eco-friendly. And so
you are saying there was no need to do the EI if the developments that were to be done by the family would fit what the Forestry Commission wanted.
Exactly.
So your view is that the declassification opens the gate for anything to be done.
Yes.
Irrespective of what the EI gives as assurances. You don't believe that?
Exactly.
You don't think that the government will stick by what it says in the EI?
Because experience has taught us that such regulations do not work.
We'll leave the people of Ghana to decide. Thank you. So you're a member of the Lands and Forestry Committee. Are you going to call the minister?
I'm the deputy ranking member.
Are you going to call the minister to come and explain?
Obviously, when the House resumes and this is still pending, the minister will have to answer some questions on the floor. What we are demanding is that the president must call his advisors to the drawing board, take a second look at the EI, and revoke it as soon as possible.
All right, Mr. Jinapo, you have a date with Suhuyini's committee. Thank you. We also want to thank Dr. El Graham for being on the show earlier to talk about the Japan deal. Thank you for watching tonight's edition of The Point of View. Coming up next is the Business Dashboard. Stay with us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The Point of View is brought to you by Bell, Chill and Win. Bell, Chill and Win. Everyone is a winner. Bell Mixers. Bell Mixers. The taste of adventure. Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. Kel Charcoal. Happy smile. Impuntu Technologies. Making you free to achieve.